Yeah, let's go. They'll be there forever. Hey, how you doing? All right. So you got the group together, huh? My goodness. See the arrow back there? Oh, okay. So you guys are racing around the joint.
Money off of deer skin, and their middlemen in this trade are the Yamasee Indians. Yamasee Indians have 10 villages around here. They're a confederation of sub-tribes, and they're out there either getting the deer skin or trading with Indian tribes farther west for deer skin. And it's the primary economy of South Carolina for many, many years was this deer skin trade, because it went in, if you're familiar with I can't recite it like my one friend can, but the poem The Highwayman, and what he's dressed in are the leather breeches, the leather coat, the leather hats, and everything. So that's all deer skin that he's wearing and such. The Yamasee, though, feared that they would be taken into slavery, and they are going to rise up in 1715 and initiate one of the largest Indian wars ever fought in what is today the United States. It'll be primarily over by 1720, but will continue on until the 1730s. the Yemesees will eventually be driven back into Florida. It'll allow settlement of the mainland and the beginning of what we call the rice culture during the American Revolution. You can't grow rice on Parris Island, but what you can grow is indigo. And indigo, it kind of looks like an azalea bush. I think Penn Center has some indigo growing over there you can look at. You take the leaves and the stems and you render them down, you boil them down in a real nasty concoction. I won't tell you what it is. And you produce, once you get all done with it, these blocks that then you can put in water and turn into dye. And you ship it back to Great Britain primarily to be turned into dye for dyeing clothing, the blue and such that you're familiar with. It's a very labor-intensive crop, and it's going to cause the Sea Island planters to bring in African slaves. So Parris Island, St. Helena Island, Hilton Head, ladies, indigo. Big production. Nasty crop. The slaves inhale these fumes and it greatly damages their lungs and such. But it's thriving. By weight, indigo was more profitable than rice for the American Revolution. And out on this island, some of your biggest indigo people were the Barnwells, the Elliots, who had plantations all around this area and such. When the American Revolution came, obviously the indigo trade ends. This area is devastated during the American Revolution and the British coming into the Sound out here. Parris Island primarily was had patriots, Hilton Head patriots, the Fuskie loyalists, Port Royal, a mix of the two. When the war's over, the loyalists flee to St. Augustine, end up in the Bahamas. And while they're in the Bahamas, they discover a crop that they suggest could be grown here on the Sea Islands and let their cousins back here know about it. This is something called Sea Island cotton. Again, I will not attempt to pronounce the Latin name for you. Sea Island cotton, though, is a type of cotton that produces a long thread. So it's long staple cotton. This thread can be turned into just unbelievable, like almost linen-like material, and you ship it almost primarily overseas, where it's turned into clothing for the upper class of France and Great Britain. And these people become tremendously wealthy. It is also a very labor-intensive crop. They reopened the slave trade between 1804 and 1803, Georgia and South Carolina. They bring in more African slaves for this crop, and then eventually Uplands cotton takes off as well. You can't use a cotton gin on Sea Island cotton. It breaks the threads. But it brings in so much more money than Uplands cotton that you can have slaves picking the seeds out. Parris Island was a gigantic cotton field. You could literally see from here all the way to the Broad River. There'd be no trees, none of these pine trees or anything like this. All cotton fields. Six plantations worked by about 600 to 800 slaves. All that will change at the time of the Civil War, when the United States fleet comes into the harbor on November 7th, 1861, defeats the Confederate fortifications out here, takes over the Sea Islands. The vast majority of your planters, landowners leave the area, leave behind 8,000 to 10,000 slaves on these Sea Islands. The United States, first under the Treasury Department and then later under the War Department, will hire these former slaves to continue to work on the plantations. They'll bring down government supervisors. There'll be a supervisor in charge of Parris Island. They hire the former slaves to grow cotton. They sell the cotton for the war effort. Slaves make money off of this. They establish schools down here for the former slaves, and then some people argue this is the beginning of Reconstruction that occurs here starting in 1862. I told our commanding general, I don't know if you're familiar with our commanding general, Loretta Reynolds, she's always been getting tired of this. She's always been referred to as the first woman commander of Parris Island. Well, I had to tell you, you're not the first woman commander of Parris Island. The first woman commander of Parris Island is Frances Gage. Frances Gage was an abolitionist, feminist, universalist. She came down here during the Civil War, and she was the superintendent in charge of Parris Island, the entire island. Her probably stayed in the plantation house that was located up here by the golf course clubhouse. Her daughter, Mary Gage, assisted her. Her son works in the area as well. And for a while, Clara Barton was here with Francis Gage on Parris Island as well. Now, during the Civil War, the United States government passes a property tax. And the property tax is enforced wherever they have jurisdiction. They enforce the property tax down here. Well, the property owners have fled. There's no one here to pay the tax. So if you don't pay your taxes, you get foreclosed upon. So they foreclose upon property and they sell off part of the property. They sell off property at tax sales, and some of the former slaves were able to buy property at these tax sales because now they're either working for the government, or they are in the United States Army, or they're in the United States Navy. And in some cases, the federal government will take some of this foreclosed property. Vast majority of Parris Island, much of Parris Island, is set aside for special sale to black soldiers and sailors who served in the Civil War. So during the Civil War, we see the beginning of what we call a Freedman community out here. The churches, schools, and everything, and this will exist until the early 20th century when the United States Marine Corps buys them out to establish Parris Island as a recruit depot.
The Army said that this thing was only accurate at 460 meters. The Marine Corps said, well, we're still shooting 500 meters, so we just extended the range. Now, the M16A2 came out, the barrel was changed, it was made heavier, the bullet was actually changed, it was made heavier, and the rifling inside the barrel was tightened up. You got a little bit more of a spin out of the bullet. And what that did is that made your maximum effective range now go from 460 meters to 700.
You